this webinar. Introduce myself. I am Michelle Corrigan and I'm the Programme Director for Better Security, Better Care. So welcome. Today we are going to be talking about our brand new free resource, which is an e-learning resource for care workers, specifically around data security and protection. Can I get the next slide, please? The webinar is due to be around 45 minutes, starting with myself, and then we'll move on to Fiona, who's going to actually talk around the tool itself. You'll have an opportunity to ask questions. If, while we're talking, you have any questions, please use the Q&A function rather than the chat. Things just tend to get lost if we use the chat function. And we'll have an opportunity for any live questions then. And then Tom's going to join us and talk about the benefits of this from his point of view and his role. And then we'll have a short poll. We do have a short poll now, if we can pop that up. If everyone can take a minute to complete that for us. While that's up, I'll just go through a little bit of housekeeping. So the slides from today will be published alongside the recordings for anyone who has to drop out or misses it or wants to share this with colleagues. All of the tools are available on the Digital Care Hub website, and you'll find these alongside that. We can close that poll now. Brilliant. Okay, well, without further ado, I'll hand you over to Fiona, who is going to talk about the tool itself.
Thanks very much, Michelle. So I'm Fiona Richardson. I'm the Director of the Institute of Public Care at Oxford Brookes University, and I created this e-learning course. So I'm going to talk you through it. Okay. Now, the first thing you might be asking is why? Why did we do it? Well, data protection law, GDPR, as well as the National Health and Social Care Data Security Standards, require all care providers to train their staff at least once a year. And we know that it's really difficult to find training on data protection and cybersecurity that really works well for social care staff. Now, don't get me wrong, there is training out there, but in my opinion, there was nothing that was easy to access, free, and sector specific. So that's why we created this course. I've created it for the Better Security, Better Care programme. And I just want to say, free, what's the best things about the training? It's free, it's packed with scenarios relevant to adult social care services. And best of all, it's really good. But I would say that, wouldn't I? Let me just spend a few minutes telling you about why I think it's good. And the first thing to say is it's specifically for staff working in adult social care. We think it's relevant to all staff here. And it introduces why data security and protection is important and shows the learner what you should do to keep data safe. Now, it's split into 4 bite-sized e-learning modules, and that's so that time-pressured individuals can complete it in stages. And I think that each module will take somewhere between 10 and 20 minutes to complete. They're of different sizes. And that learners can come back to those modules at any time. They can dip in and out of them. And that you can access that learning on phones or tablets, laptops and computers, as we know that many people will undertake this learning on their own devices and or their own time. Now, it's free to access from the Digital Care Hub website, but if you're a care provider organisation and you've got your own learning management system, you can, if you want, download it as SCORM-compatible files and use it within your own system. We've got a free-to-use non-commercial licence, so if that's of interest to you, contact Digital Care Hub. And the materials include an assessment. They've got an 80% pass rate, and that means that they can help you to demonstrate that you've met requirements of the Data Security and Protection Toolkit, which to train staff annually. Now, when we were developing the training, we tested the draft learning materials with a range of people who work in adult social care to help us ensure that materials are realistic and meet the needs of the sector. And I think that it's that testing that helped us to develop these 4, I call them archetype characters, that the e-learning is built around. And we've put them in realistic and relatable scenarios that demonstrate the key learning points and the consequences of getting things wrong. So there's 4 folks here. There's Abdul, who works in a care home, Arthur, who's a volunteer for this fictitious place called the Larches Centre, Annie's a support worker for Willow Support, and Gloria works in the office for Elm Home Care, so she's our administrator. And in this way, we think that the training is suitable for all adult social care services and kind of all of those frontline sorts of roles. And I must remember to say at this point that these characters and these organisations are fictitious. So if they remind you of anyone that you know, that's just coincidence. Okay, so what does it cover? So there are 4 modules. And if you go onto the website, this is what you'll see. Now, I'm going to be really brave in a minute. I'm going to demonstrate it to you, but just in case of internet issues, I did put this on a slide so that you can see it. So these 4 modules, the first one is data protection rights and responsibilities. And this one is not detailed content. This one's about winning hearts and minds. It tries to say why this subject's important and what are your responsibilities for handling data safely. And the second module, keeping data secure, that's about how to do it by sharing confidential data appropriately and also through good record keeping and data disposal. And the third module is about threats to data security that you might encounter, and it includes common types of fraud and scams and how to safely use digital devices and how to safely keep paper records. And lastly, there's a module on data breaches, which goes through what data breaches are, the causes of them, and what to do in the event of a data breach. Right, let's look under the bonnet here then. So if you were to click on one of those boxes, you'll see something like this. And this is actually a screenshot of Module 4 about data breaches. And they follow a pattern. Each module has an introduction that says what are the learning outcomes for that module. And then there's some content in the middle. And in this particular case, there's 5 sections. And then there's a recap at the end that reinforces learning. And in all of these modules, we put our 4 characters into different scenarios. And I've got an example on screen here. This one's about Gloria, our administrator, and it's about phishing scams. And if you don't know what phishing is, that's phishing spelled with a PH, by the way, then I'd suggest that you do that module 3, about threats to data security. And as you can see here, there's some content. It's usually quite short, it's not very long. And often there's a sort of a quiz or a multiple choice interaction to support the learning. Now, this isn't part of the official assessment. This is just to help you and your staff embed what you're learning in the different modules. And this is another example here. This is some content about Annie and her colleague Sammy. And you can see that there's some short content again, and there's an example of a multiple choice question. And every time there's a multiple choice question, when you put your answer in, you'll get some feedback telling you whether you're right or whether you're wrong, but also crucially, like this example, saying why you're right or why you're wrong. So that what you see will change depending on the answers that you put in. Now, here's some more examples of the content. And what we try to do is to cram in as much or as many practical tips and advice as we can. You can see this one. This is around phishing scams. This is in module 3. And we've particularly tried to put in lots of advice in this section in module 3, which is about digital devices, fraud and scams, to help people who are not digitally savvy. And on this example, if I was to click on some of these purple boxes here, what would show in the real thing is some advice about what to do in this scenario. And there's also some interactive graphics like this one. So this is an example of Abdul in the care home walking into the office, and you can click on the graphics here to find out more about that scenario. And as I said, the end of every section and the end of every module, there's a recap video, short video somewhere. The shortest one I think is about 45 seconds and the longest one about a minute and a half. Now that's a screen grab that we've taken. It's a bit blurry, I can see that one. And I'm not going to play that to you now because I hope to do a live demo in a moment and go in and play you one of the videos. So that's our 4 modules. That's the content. And there's also the assessment. So when people have completed the modules, they can do the assessment. And the assessment consists of 20 questions based on the content of all of the 4 modules. And there is a question bank that we're using, which means that you won't necessarily see exactly the same questions every time you do the assessment, or if people do the assessment, they'll see slightly different questions. And the modules and the assessment, they have individual links to them, which does mean that you can do the assessment straight off. You're not forced to do the modules first, but I really wouldn't recommend that unless you're very experienced in data protection and cybersecurity, as the assessment is just that. It's just a test of what people know. The assessment is not the learning resource in and of itself. If you get answers wrong, you won't be told what you got wrong and why you've got wrong. So there's no feedback on that. But you can retake. Okay? So again, I would strongly urge people not to go straight in to do the assessment, but to do the e-learning modules first, and only to do the assessment when they feel confident that they understand the subject. So if you do the assessment, when you get to the end, you'll see a box like this. Now, this is the good news box, because this is one that you'll see if people pass the assessment. And in this case, I think one of my colleagues did this one and took this screenshot, they got 100% right. You see 20 out of 20 questions. If you don't pass, then the box will say something slightly different, and you can retake again. So it'll ask you if you want to retake the assessment, which you can do straight away. Or you could close it, look at the modules again, and come back and do the assessment another time. And assuming you've passed, you click on the purple button and it will generate a certificate. So when you or your staff do the assessment, we advise you to put your name in there, click on the purple button, and then save that certificate and send it to you or the training manager or whoever's appropriate there as proof. And you can see on the bottom right there, that's what the certificate will look like. So as well as the e-learning itself, there are 2 guides, one for managers or trainers and one for the staff actually completing the toolkit itself. And there's also in those guides some words, some copy that you might use to tell your staff about it. And in those guides, there's some top tips. And I pulled out some of these here for you. So our top tips for using this e-learning: read the guide first, encourage all your staff to complete it. And that includes senior managers and admin staff, as well as frontline care workers, or anyone that has access to clients or colleagues' personal data. Add this e-learning course to your induction training, so that will help ensure that all staff have a shared understanding of data protection issues. And schedule in a refresher course every year. So if you have a learning management system, you could consider adding this course to it, contact us to do that. I'd also say add a link to this resource in your staff bulletin, notice board, shared documents, or wherever else. Make sure that you have some kind of system to record successful completion on your staff members' training records. So ask people to send you a copy of their certificate with the date that they completed their assessment. So you've got that proof, which will ensure that your training records are up to date when you come to submit your data security and protection toolkit. Right, so let's get to the fun bit. These are the links. The learning module is here, okay? And you can, if you like, send people links to the individual modules or the assessment. You can read the guide. We'd suggest you complete the course yourself. And please do send us some feedback. You know, this is new. We're very excited. We think it's shiny and brilliant, but we'd also like to hear what you think about it. So let's go for it. Let's click on the link. Right, and I'm just going to ask a few people that I can see here to nod if you can see that one. Can you see the e-learning? Okay, I think so. So this is the page, digitalcarehub.co.uk, e-learning. There's information here, including information for care managers and trainers, questions, and this is the feedback I was talking about. But if I scroll down, you can see the 4 e-learning modules here. Now, I'm going to show you the 4th one first because it's the shortest module. So this is module 4. So this is the module on data breaches. You can see there's an introduction, 5 sections, and then a recap. So I'm going to whiz through them. I'm not going to do all of the activities to save time, but it starts with the learning outcomes. So by the end of this section, you should be able to. If I click on next page, there's some information about what's a data breach. There's some interactive cards. If you've done any e-learning, you've probably seen something similar. So a data breach is something happening to personal data that shouldn't. It could be a breach of confidentiality. If data is seen by somebody who shouldn't see it. Then there's a bit of a quiz here. What's the biggest cause of data breaches? I'm not going to click on the answers. You can have that fun. And then there's an exercise getting you to drag and drop this example. Sending an email that contains personal data to the wrong person. Is that a data breach or not? Well, actually, I'll give you a little clue. That one is a data breach. Again, I'm just going to scroll on down so we can quickly go through the module. Here's one of our scenarios about Arthur, and Arthur having some second thoughts about putting a calendar up in a public place. I'll go through that one. Then there's another scenario here about Abdul needing to see a care plan and whether that's a data breach. Another scenario here about Gloria sending invoices. What to do about recording a data breach if a data breach happens. There's a quote here from Vic Rayner. Some more information about why it's important to report a data breach. If I go on to the next section, this example here about receiving a data breach. So the training not only covers what to do if the data breach is caused by yourself or someone in your organization, but also what you should do if you're aware of one by somebody else. Throughout the modules, there are these sort of stop and think sections to say to learners to reflect on what would you do if this happened to you. And in some of the modules, we've got this sliding scale. If you spotted a data breach tomorrow, how confident would you feel about knowing what to do? And you're just asked to move the slider and then submit and get some feedback. And then at the end of the section, there's a recap video, which I will play now.
I think it has stopped Fiona video. We can't hear it.
Is the sound not on?
I don't know if you clicked share sound when you clicked on share screen.
Hold on a moment. I would just stop there 1 second and do that one again.
There's a little button on a corner.
See the dangers of trying to do a technical. Yeah, I got it. Share sound. Schoolgirl error. Thanks, Marta. Should we try that one again? Okay, the captions are on, so you should be able to see it, but I'll try again.
A data breach is when something happens to personal data that shouldn't happen. There are three main types of breach. Confidentiality breach. This happens when data is seen by someone who should not have access to it. Integrity breach. This occurs when data is not complete, accurate, or up to date. Availability breach. This is when data is not available when needed. It's crucial to report data breaches and near misses immediately. Never assume that someone else will take responsibility for reporting the issue. If you ever spot a data breach, don't hesitate. Act fast. The sooner the breach is reported, the quicker it can be resolved, minimizing potential damage.
There you go. And then we can close that page and come back to our options here. And one of the reasons why we put those recap videos in, we thought it would be good from a learning point of view to have those recaps at the end of every session. But also, it gives you options of how you might use the training. If you're a team manager, for instance, you could just play those videos to your team and lead into a discussion about what you do in your services if there was a data breach or whatever the topic is. So hopefully you'll find the materials and resources quite flexible for you to use with your team, for you to use yourselves, and also for your staff or your volunteers to go off and use individually to help you demonstrate and evidence that you've trained all your staff in data protection and cyber security. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop there because we may have some questions. And if we've got time or if people want me to, I'm very happy to demonstrate one or two other things. I thought there might be questions at this stage.
Thanks, Fiona. That was brilliant. We do have one question. So excuse me, everyone. I'm full of December lurgy. Heidi has asked, is the content accessible for learners using assistive technology such as screen readers?
Yes, it is. We've tested it for accessibility and it should be accessible. You should be able to use it using screen readers and other digital aids. If there's any issues with that, if anyone finds something, then do let us know. Contact us. We have tested it for accessibility and I think it's okay. But the proof will be in the pudding when it gets out there widely, won't it? And people start using it. So, come back to us if that doesn't work for you.
Thanks, Fiona. Another question we've got here is, if an organisation uses the SCORM file on their own learning management system, will they get a certificate?
Yes, you can download the SCORM files. Obviously, you need to download all 4 modules and the assessment module as well, and it will still produce the certificate in the same way.
Brilliant. And then the last question I've got here, unless anyone wants to pop any others in the Q&A, is once someone's completed the module, can it show that you've completed that module in case you get distracted and need to go away and come back?
Yes, it should do. It depends on whether you close your browser and whether or not you're doing it in a learning management system. If your organization's downloaded it into their learning management system, then there'll be different rules and regs that apply to whatever's in your learning management system. If you're doing it from the Digital Care Hub website, and you open it and you part complete it. If your browser, if you leave it open, it'll remember where you're up to. But if you close down your browser, you'll have to start it again. So it kind of depends how you do it.
Thank you, Fiona. There's no more questions have come up in the Q&A. So I think with that, oh, hang on, something's
Is there
just
any
popped.
in the chat?
I did have a little look. It does say here, how long does the training take roughly?
Well, we've sort of said about 10 to 20 minutes per module. The modules are different sizes. I showed you module 4 because I think that's the shortest one. Should be able to do that in just under 10 minutes. Some of the longer modules, module 3 is the longest one. I think that's a good 20 minutes to do. So the others are about 15 minutes. So all told, I think about an hour. It depends on how quick people are, their technical skills, whether you're doing it on a phone and that's a bit more fiddly. But I reckon you could do the lot if you put an hour aside, or if you put sort of 15 minutes aside for most of the modules each time, that will do it.
Brilliant. Thank you, Fiona. And that's been really great. I think every time I see the elearning, I'm really pleased with it. I think what we can do now is move over to Tom, who's going to talk to us about, why this is important, why it's even been, something that we've certainly had a lot of requests from.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, first of all, at the Forward Trust, my employer, where I'm the data protection officer, every year we need to train about 800 people on data protection. Our current training, which we are now very keen to replace with this new resource, takes about 1.5 hours per person on average. That's 33 working weeks of charity time annually. So you can understand with just that number, 33 weeks of charity time. I was shocked when I did the math and like, gosh, that's a lot. I can't justify that if the resource is not good. And when training is not tailored to the need of our staff and to the working context, it just becomes a box ticking exercise. And if training only focuses on keeping data away from the wrong eyes, we ignore a lot of things that, especially in the care sector, are crucial. Because it's just as vital that data is shared with the right people, for instance, with safeguarding. And it's just as crucial that data is accurate and up to date. And finally, most training resources present data protection as a way to avoid those infamous GDPR fines. I'm sure that all of you have noticed the same thing. I mean, you shop around for a resource like that. It's all about the fines. That's not what resonates with my colleagues, and I'm sure that that's not what resonates with your colleagues either. Instead, the better security, better care training brings it down to what really resonates with people. That data protection and cyber awareness is about protecting the people in our care and the people we work with. And that's purely from my perspective of having every year to make sure that all our staff, or 95% of our staff, are trained. I can't do that with a resource that is not tailored to the needs of the people that do the actual work in the organization. And that's why I was very keen when I heard that this was being developed, and why me and several of my colleagues joined in to test the resources. And it was really nice to see that every time we did a round of feedback, the next time that had been addressed, so people were really listening. The team was really listening to the feedback we were giving, because we were like, oh, well, in our practice, this is something we struggle with, or this example doesn't quite work for us. And yeah, I'm very keen to start using this because it will make my life as a DPO a lot easier.
Thanks, Tom. That's brilliant. I think hopefully you've all found this really informative. This is the first time we've done anything of this sort. This is the first resource of its kind that we've made available to the sector. And really what we're hoping is that it proves useful. Earlier on, we gave you the email address for if you are requesting the SCORM file. Use that to send us any feedback as well. If there are things that we've missed, if there are things we haven't seen, it's going out hopefully to thousands and thousands of people. So someone's going to spot something we've not seen yet, and we do really welcome that. We are going to work to keep this updated. Again, someone asked earlier on if you've taken the SCORM file and updates are made. We will endeavour to let you know. Just make sure that whoever has that email address with us, it stays up to date. It's an accessible inbox. And really, I just hope that this becomes something that is useful to everyone in the sector. We do have one last poll, if you don't mind, before we finish.
I was going to also just say one other thing.
Absolutely, Fiona.
Yeah, and just sparked for me, Michelle, you're saying it's going to go out to thousands and thousands of people. I mean, there's potentially something like 1.6 million people working in the sector, and you can't please all of the people all the time. It's really hard to get one training resource that's going to tick the absolute boxes of everybody. So what we've done here is concentrated on good practice and what are the key messages that cut across. But we've also put in lots of messages that say, always do what your organization's policies and procedures say. Okay, and that's our sort of get out clause, because it's easy to say good practice about sharing confidential data. It's much harder to talk about good practice when you're talking about things like, how should we take paper records out of the building? Are you allowed to do that? Are you not allowed to do that? Are you told to keep it with you at all times, leave it in your car? Different organizations say different things. So we've had some messages here. I'm pretty confident that they will stand up to, they are good practice and will tell you what to do right. But if it was me in a care provider organizations, I would just, for you to get your staff to do it, dust down your own policies and procedures about data protection and remind people of what they should be doing, or remind them that they are there. Because if they watch this training, they will get a very strong message to look at your own organization's policies and procedures. So just kind of be prepared for that when it comes.
Thanks, Fiona. That's really useful. Well, I think that's everything for today. We've got the poll to pop up. Please, Marta. There we go. So yeah, if everyone can just complete this poll, because it just gives us an insight into, what we're doing and whether it's useful. Thank you everyone for joining us today. I really do hope that you go away and use this resource within your organizations and that it is helpful. Give a couple of minutes to the poll. Should we close the poll there and call the session to an end, please? Brilliant. Thank you, everybody.